Hello friends, welcome to a new topic today. In this chapter, we are going to learn a few miscellaneous disorders. Among them, the first disorder which we will learn today is about the congenital pseudoarthrosis. So what are we going to see? What is congenital pseudoarthrosis? So before going into congenital pseudoarthrosis, what is pseudoarthrosis actually? See, pseudoarthrosis is actually a false joint. So think that there is fracture. Okay, now because of this fracture, normally if there is a fracture, you will immobilize it, and slowly after immobilization for few days there is callus formation, and this heals based on the fracture healing. First there will be neutrophils, then there will be granuloma formation, then there will be callus formation, and finally there will be bone laying, compact bone formation, and finally there will be remodeling. Okay, all that will occur. But if there is inadequate immobilization after fracture, you have immobilized it, but the immobilization is not proper, okay, or inadequate. If there is inadequate immobilization, this inadequate immobilization will result in non-union. Okay, the fracture is not united. Okay, and this non-union will result in formation of false joint space. There is development of false joint. Okay, but the question is, how is this false joint formed? This also you should know, right? It is interesting. See, whenever there is this non-union, okay, so think that this is the non-united fracture, okay, and this is the skin. Okay, because of this non-union, there is some callus which is formed here, right? But still it is not non-union, but still the patient will do movements, right? Because it's not adequately immobilized, so movements will be there, and because of this movements, and because if the patient walks or does his work, okay, this callus will now degenerate. The callus which is formed will degenerate. So because of this non-union, the callus which is formed, the callus which is formed, or we can say formed callus, the callus which is formed will degenerate. Okay, especially the central part of the callus formed will degenerate, and once this callus formed is degenerated, okay, and this will lead to the formation of a cystic lesion. Okay, this will degenerate, leading to cyst formation, and interestingly, if you see, this cyst is also lined by some cells which are like synovial cells. They are not synovial cells, but they are lined by synovial like cells. Okay, and this is called as, this leads to the formation of pseudo joint, right? Truly it's not a joint, so it is pseudo joint, or we can say that it is a false joint, and this false joint is called as pseudoarthrosis. What is this called? This is called as pseudoarthrosis. So this is one thing which you have to remember. So what is there in congenital pseudoarthrosis? Let's see the sentences here. Okay, this is the same process that is happening. Here you will have a false joint which is developed after a fracture that has not united properly due to inadequate immobilization. So these are the keywords. If you remember the keywords and make your own sentences, it's done. So if a non-union, okay, here there is on non-union, if this is allowed too much motion along the fracture gap, if along the fracture gap there is more motion, then this leads to the formation of central callus. Central portion of callus will undergo cystic degeneration. Okay, will undergo cystic degeneration, and thus this leads to the formation of false joint which is filled with clear fluid. Okay, false joint filled with clear fluid, and this is called as pseudoarthrosis. It's simple, right? Now, what are the most common causes of pseudoarthrosis? If you see the most common causes of pseudoarthrosis, these include, first, idiopathic is the most common cause, followed by neurofibromatosis. The first most common cause is idiopathic, followed by neurofibromatosis, right? So now we will see the causes in list of the causes. Okay, if you see the list of the causes, these causes include, first we have neurofibromatosis, The causes of pseudoarthrosis include neurofibromatosis, whenever there is non-union of the fracture, right? Sometimes it can be congenital. Congenital pseudoarthrosis is there. This congenital pseudoarthrosis is most common in the lower to middle third of tibia, okay, and there is cupping of the proximal bone and pointing of distal bone is seen. So in congenital you see cupping of the proximal bone and pointing of the distal bone is seen. This is the pseudoarthrosis which you are seeing here. Okay, so this is the congenital one. See, you see cupping here. Here you see cupping of the proximal bone. Here you see this pointing of the distal bone is seen. So you are seeing here congenital pseudoarthrosis. This is the tibia bone which is present in the lower to middle third of tibia with cupping in the proximal bone and pointing in the distal bone is seen, right? And then the other causes are, it is also seen in osteogenesis imperfecta, okay, it is seen in fibrous dysplasia of the bone, then cleidocranial dysplasia, fibrous dysplasia of bone, cleidocranial dysplasia, ankylosing spondylitis. So what are the causes? Neurofibromatosis, non-union of bone, congenital pseudoarthrosis, osteogenesis imperfecta, fibrous dysplasia, cleidocranial dysplasia and ankylosing spondylitis. Then the other causes are post-surgical. In the post-surgical, most commonly it is seen in triple arthrodesis. Most commonly it is seen in triple arthrodesis or spinal fusion has a complication. Next, what is the most common bone involved here? Tibia is the most common bone involved here. There are 5 forms of this dysplasia. We have 5 different forms of this pseudoarthrosis, which include dysplastic form, cystic form, sclerotic form, fibular form, clubfoot or congenital band type. We have 5 types of this pseudoarthrosis, which is dysplastic type, cystic type, sclerotic type, fibular, clubfoot or congenital band type. Okay. Now the question is, what is the most common type dysplastic type? The most common dysplastic type, it is tapered at the defective end. Okay, and there is something called as hourglass constriction. Okay, this hourglass constriction is associated with neurofibrosis. Okay, so here in the most common dysplastic type, you have hourglass constriction and this is associated with neurofibromatosis. Then it will also lead to poor fracture healing and recurrent fractures can occur in this pseudoarthrosis. Okay, if you see the treatment, the treatment cast immobilization is not successful. Okay, you can't do cast immobilization. What is the initial treatment which is necessary? The initial treatment here include nailing of the bone graft. You can either nailing and bone graft can be put, or you can put an Ilizaros fixator. Okay, or sometimes because it is a non-union, you can use a vascular fibular graft can also be used. So what can you use? You can do cast immobilization, but this is not successful. So initially you will have to do the nailing and bone grafting should be done, or Ilizaros fixation, and if there are multiple failed surgeries, then you can do vascular fibular graft. Okay, so this is about the pseudoarthrosis. Then after pseudoarthrosis, let us now learn about one more disorder, which is osteochondritis dissecans. Okay, what is this osteochondritis dissecans? We don't know why, but there is one thing that is happening here, that is softening and separation of portion of joint surface occurs. Here softening and separation of joint surface occurs. In osteochondritis dissecans, there is mainly softening and separation of joint surface, and this will lead to the development of necrotic bone in the joint. So when the joint surface will undergo softening and separation, at least a small segment of necrotic bone is left in the joint, and that is called as osteochondritis dissecans. Among all the joints, knee joint is the most common joint affected. And in the knee joint, if you see, the most common part affected is lower lateral part of medial femoral femoral condyle is most commonly affected. In the knee joint, lower lateral part of medial femoral condyle is most commonly affected. What is the second most common? Second most common is the elbow joint, is the second most common site. Okay. Then this osteochondritis dehiscens, what is the cause? It is mostly trauma. The main important cause of this osteochondritis dehiscens is trauma. It can be either one impact or it can be either micro trauma. Whatever it is, it can be normal trauma or it can be repeated micro trauma. But the main etiology here is trauma. So whenever there is trauma, then obviously you will see this osteochondritis dissecans happening. So if you see, the patient here is usually an adolescent male, okay, and he has intermittent acne. He sees intermittent aches and swellings over the joints, and there will be localized tenderness over the joint. There is a sign which is called as Wilson's sign. What is this Wilson's sign? Pain which is felt in extension of flexed knee in medial rotation. Okay, when he flexes the knee and then tries to extend the knee in medial rotation, if he feels pain, then we call that sign as Wilson's sign, which is positive. So here this patient is usually an adolescent male with intermittent aches and swellings are seen, and there will be localized tenderness, and there is a sign called as Wilson's sign, which shows that there is pain that is felt in extension of flexed knee in medial rotation, which is specific with osteochondritis dissecans. And if you were asked what is the best X-ray for this view, for this is the best X-ray view to find out the knee osteochondritis dissecans is intercondylar view, or you can say tunnel view with 30 degrees knee flexion, or tunnel view. You can either use intercondylar view or tunnel view with 30 degrees knee flexion. We can use either tunnel view with 30 degrees knee flexion, or you can use intercondylar view. Then you can even use MRI to make early diagnosis of cartilaginous lesions. We can use MRI. Then how are you going to treat the lesions? The treatment options are, there is a treatment option which is called as O'Driscoll or 4R for treatment. What do you see in this? In this, if you see, we have 4 R's, that is relief by physiotherapy, and you also use pain control modalities, and then you will have to resect, excise if the excision of the small segment or fragment of bone which is present, you will have to excise it. Then second, you will have to replace the joint surface, okay, and you will have to restore the cartilaginous lesion. You will have to restore the cartilaginous lesion. Sometimes you will have to do fixation with headless screws or Herbert screws can be done. Okay, and you can do weight bearing till union. If, for example, if the lesion is less than 2 centimeters, then we can do autologous chondrocyte transplantation can be done. If the lesion is less than 2 centimeters, then we can do autologous chondrocyte transplantation. That is, here the chondrocytes or cartilage cells, they are grown in the artificial media, and these are transplanted into the cartilaginous defect. So this is autologous chondrocyte transplantation. Then we can also do, there is a technique which is available, one more technique, that is called as microfracture technique or abrasion arthroplasty. In this microfracture technique or abrasion arthroplasty, we will make drill holes at the base of the lesion. So if this is the lesion, okay, you will make drill holes at the base of the lesion, and then because once you make drill holes at the base of the lesion, this will cause regeneration of fibrocartilage. Okay, this fibrocartilage and will fill the hyaline cartilage defect present in the normal bone, and thus this fibrocartilage will substitute for the hyaline cartilage. Okay, that is microfracture technique or abrasion arthroplasty. That means when you drill the holes, the fibrocartilage in the joint surface gets activated, and this will activate or replace the degenerating hyaline cartilage. That is microfracture technique or abrasion arthroplasty. Now the most important is this list. See, in orthopedics we have many lists which you should remember. Okay, I can't help it. Here the most important list is types of osteochondritis. So we have different types of osteochondritis which are available. So these include, one, we have Skarman's osteochondritis, which is ring epiphysis of vertebrae. One, we have Skarman's osteochondritis, which is ring epiphysis of vertebrae. Lateral part of medial femoral condyle can also cause the osteochondritis dissecans. Okay, osteochondritis dissecans is nothing but osteochondritis in the knee is most commonly called as osteochondritis dissecans. We have Sever's disease in osteochondritis in calcaneum is called as Sever's disease. Osteochondritis in elbow, we call it as Panner's disease. Osteochondritis in tibial tuberosity, we call it as Osgood-Sattler's disease. Osteochondritis in second metatarsal head, we call it as Freiberg disease. Osteochondritis in lunate bone, we call it as Kienbock disease. Osteochondritis in femoral head, we call it as Perthes disease. Osteochondritis in lower part of patella, which is called as Johansson-Larson's disease. Osteochondritis in the central bony nucleus of vertebrae, we call it as Scarf's disease. Osteochondritis in the fifth metatarsal bone, we call it as Isleen disease. Osteochondritis in the navicular bone, we call it as Kohler's disease. So these are the different types of osteochondritis. Okay, next, so this is about the osteochondritis and pseudoarthrosis. Thank you guys for watching my lecture. In the next class we will learn about avascular necrosis of avascular necrosis. Thank you for watching my lecture. Thank you.